Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So today's home ec video is going to be a little bit different. Last week I had filmed a video, and in the video I did a recipe that I had never done before. I was trying somebody else's recipe and it was a complete flop. Now at the time I did not have time to film a whole new video all over again. And I did an announcement and I talked about how, it had been a flop and all this stuff. And I actually had so many people who said they wanted to see the flop that I thought, well, that'll be the next home ec video then. I will share the flop. I do not have all of the footage that I had filmed. However, I do have the vast majority of it, and so I'm going to share with you the lesson as I filmed it originally, and then I will come back here at the end and I'll just talk about that recipe and why I think it was a complete and total failure, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So without further ado, here's the home ec lesson of the week. Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. My name is Constance, and in my last home ec video we talked all about leavening, what leavening was, the different types of leavening, and after we went through all of the lesson, I mentioned that we would begin doing recipes using different aspects of the leavening that we had discussed. And today is going to be the first one of those recipes. We're going to do a really easy recipe that uses egg whites as the leavening, and that is for a classic cookie or treat called meringue cookies. Now for this recipe we are going to need egg whites, vanilla extract, cream of tartar, which is tartaric acid, a little pinch of sea salt, and then we're going to need a sweetener. Now you could use powdered sugar, but because I am avoiding sugar, I'm going to experiment and use a sugar replacement in this particular recipe. It is a monk fruit and allulose sweetener, and it is a substitute for powdered sugar, and so that's what we're going to use today. We're going to start by preheating our oven to 200 degrees. Now the first thing that we're going to need to do is we are going to need to separate our eggs. When you are making meringue, you only need the egg whites, and so I'm going to show you two different very simple methods for separating eggs. Now I have two dishes here. One is for the egg whites and one is for the egg yolks. And for this recipe, room temperature eggs are very important because the egg whites will beat up and become frothy much easier than they would with cold eggs. So I'm going to very gently crack my egg. Okay. And then I'm going to break the shell in half. And we're going to do this very carefully because we do not want to puncture the yolk. So I'm just going to kind of crack it open, zipper it open a little bit. Alright, now we're just going to let the egg whites fall into the dish, and now I'm going to take the two halves and I'm just going to transfer the yolk from one half to the other, allowing the egg white to fall into the dish. Just like that. And we'll save this egg yolk for another recipe. Alright, that's one. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my mixer bowl. And now we'll separate a second egg, and I'm just going to show you another method for doing that. Now this one you want very clean hands, so make sure your hands are freshly washed. In this one, we're going to open the egg the same way. And this time we're just going to pour the egg into our fingers and let the whites fall through, just like that. And we'll pour the second egg white into the mixing bowl. Now with the egg whites, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in our cream of tartar. Again, cream of tartar is an acid, and this helps stabilize the egg whites and helps them get nice and frothy. We need a half of a teaspoon. Into the bowl. Now we're going to turn the mixer onto a medium speed and we're going to beat the egg whites until they are nice and frothy. Now you want to pay attention to what's going on down here. If you see your cream of tartar sticking to the side of the bowl, take a little rubber spatula and scrape it down into the egg whites and then continue mixing. Okay, now we have nice frothy eggs. Now we're going to add in a pinch of salt, which is always just a 2-finger pinch, just like that. And we're going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now we're going to start beating again, but this time we're going to put it on a high speed and we're going to beat the egg white mixture until we have soft peaks form, and I'll show you what that looks like. Well, we actually had them get a little bit stiffer than we needed them to, but that's okay. When you dip your beater down into the egg whites and you see there's a little point that comes off of that, if you tilt it up and it stays, that's a stiff peak. If you tilt it up and it flops over, that's a soft peak. So I actually beat these a little bit more than I needed to. It only takes a very short time for the egg whites to stiffen up like this, especially when there's only 2 of them in there. We're going to need 1/4 cup of the sweetener. And like I said, you could use powdered sugar for this, but I am using a sugar substitute. Get that nice and level. Now we're going to turn on the mixer just kind of on a medium-low speed and sprinkle the sweetener in while it's mixing. We want to take a clean spatula, scrape around the edges, make sure everything is all mixed in. Give it another quick stir. And that's it. So now at this point you can see how this egg white mixture is super fluffy. It's just like a foam. And that is how egg whites can act as a leavening in a recipe. When you are making something like an angel food cake, this is where all the air comes from. There is no other leavening in an angel food cake. And yet an angel food cake is extremely fluffy. Now I have a baking sheet that is lined with some parchment paper. And you could use a piping bag, which is the bag that you use with the different tips to frost a cake or cupcakes. Or you can use a very simple scoop, which is what I'm going to use today. If you don't have a scoop like this, you could do this with 2 spoons and scoop it out that way. And so now I'm going to just scoop all of the meringue onto my pan. All right, so now these little meringues are going to go into the oven and they're going to bake for 1.5 hours. And then once they are done baking, we just turn the oven off and we leave them in there for another hour. Now while those are baking, we're going to go ahead and clean up our dishes and just wait for the timer to go off. And so right here is where I ended the filming. I do not have footage of the meringue cookies as they came out of the oven. I will simply tell you they came out caramel brown and gooey, which is not how a meringue cookie is supposed to turn out. I followed the recipe to the letter. Particularly because this was a recipe I'd never done before. Now, I've made meringue cookies before, and I have a video on that, traditional meringue cookies. However, I had never made them with this other sweetener before, and looking at the recipe and how it's basically just a classic meringue cookie minus the sweetener, my thought is it's probably the sweetener. This is a sweetener I have never used before. I actually purchased this sweetener just to make these meringue cookies. Now, it's probably a great sweetener. It just may not be great for meringues. I don't know if I'll give that recipe a try again. If I do, I would definitely try a different type of no sugar sweetener, but I will use that sweetener in other recipes and just see how it goes. So that is the lesson for today. In case you missed the announcement in my newsletter or in the video that I shared last week, the home ec lessons are going to be every other week, just to give myself a little bit of a buffer in case I have another hiccup in the filming, to make sure I have a good lesson for you each week. That is it for today. Thanks for joining me here at the homestead. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.